2-liter 4-cylinder Toyota engine.
First things first, we're going to disconnect our negative cable from our battery, like this. Alright, next we're going to remove our alternator belt, and we do that by first loosening this bolt for our adjuster. And next we need to loosen this bolt that connects our alternator to its bracket, and this one's going to require a 14 millimeter socket or wrench. And you don't have to remove these again, you just need to loosen them. Okay? Alright, back here again, and now we're going to undo this bolt all the way, and that's going to allow us to push this alternator down and get enough slack here to remove it. And this is going to require a 12 millimeter socket. There we go. Alright, next we're going to remove this upper torque mount by removing these 3 14 millimeter bolts. There we go. Next we're going to undo this grounding cable connector by pressing up on this little plastic tab and then pulling it apart like this. Next we're going to get this coolant reservoir out of the way to make more room here. So first we'll remove this cap, set it aside here, and then just push on this tab and pull this up and set this out of the way. Next we need to get this metal bracket out of the way, and as far as I can see right now there are 3 bolts holding it in, one up here and 2 down here that you guys might not be able to see, but these are going to be 14 millimeter bolts. So if you have to do this, you want to loosen the one that's further back first, that way you have enough room for your ratchet or your wrench, then do the one that's closer to the front of the engine. There. Alright, so here's a better shot at this, and this is sitting there like this, so you want to loosen this one first. That way, if you loosen this one, this is going to stick out, not going to give you enough room to get to this one, okay? So loosen this one first, then this one, then you can get it out. Alright, next we're going to remove our upper timing bolt cover, and on this front side, I can see 3 bolts that are holding it in, one here, one down there. And towards the back, there's going to be 2. One you can get through from this side, and then one up top that you guys are not going to be able to see, but these are all going to be 10 millimeter bolts. And by the way, the lowest one, the one that goes down here, this is the longer one, so keep that in mind. Alright, here's the one on the rear, and I'm missing one up top, but yours is probably going to be there. Now we can get this upper timing belt cover off. If your timing bolt is not torn like mine. Now the good news is these engines are non-interference. That means when your timing belt goes, your valves don't hit your pistons, therefore your top end is undamaged, and you pretty much just have to put another belt on and be on your way. But that's not the case for most engines. If you don't replace your timing belt on time and it snaps, then you're going to damage your top end, at least damage your top end more than likely. In a worst case scenario, damage your bottom end as well, and then you would need an entirely different engine. But again, on these cars, since they're non-interference engines, that doesn't happen, and you simply have to put another timing belt on and be on your way. Alright, next I'm going to try to remove as many of these bolts for the lower timing belt cover as well. So I can see one here and another one down there, and it's probably going to be 2 more underneath, but we'll get to those when we go underneath the car to remove our power steering belt and our harmonic balancer. Alright, here's the one that goes to the center. And here's the one that's towards the front of the engine. Alright, next in preparation for removing our power steering pump belt, we're going to loosen this 12 millimeter bolt that attaches our power steering pump to its bracket. There we go. Alright, so next you would normally need to remove a splash shield here that's held on by 2 10 millimeter bolts, but it's missing on this card as you can see. Okay, so onto the power steering pump belt it is. So in order to remove this belt, we need to undo this 12 millimeter bolt and then press in our power steering pump, and then we'll have enough slack to remove this belt. There we go. And again, all you have to do is to loosen this. You don't need to remove it. And slide this off the pulley like that, and then get it out of here. Next, we're going to remove our crankshaft bolt, and this is going to require a 19 millimeter socket. There we go. Don't lose this washer. And now we're going to see how lucky we are. not that lucky. I'm gonna get some PB blaster and then hit it with a rubber mallet. See if that helps at all. Alright, so I finally gave up and I got my harmonic balancer remover. So hopefully it should come out with no problem now. Oh yeah. Should not be a big deal. There we go. Alright, so something to make a note of is that these bolts that you'll need to remove your harmonic balancer that screw into it, they're M6 by 1 and they're pretty long. I'm going to say this is about 45 to 50 millimeters, and they are not going to come with your harmonic balancer remover tool if you decide to rent one of these from the AutoZone and whatnot. And so you're going to have to buy these separately, but also don't forget to get some of these washers as well. Now we should be able to get this bottom cover off as well. And then remove the rest of our destroyed timing belt. Next we're going to remove this washer. Alright, so we're back up top again. Now we're going to remove this timing belt roller. And this is going to require a 14 millimeter socket or wrench. There we go. Alright, next we're going to put on our replacement, and you could use some blue thread locker on these bolts, but it's not absolutely necessary. And the torque spec for this is 31 foot-pounds. Now before we move on to removing our tensioning roller, it's actually a good practice to make sure that your roller is rotating, or it's free to rotate. And also before we remove this, make sure you make a note of how this spring is installed. And this bolt is also another 14 millimeter. Alright. And here's our replacement. We put the spring back on this and on the pin. Then we put the other side on the pin, on the rear side, and then we start screwing in our bolt. Alright, before you completely tighten this bolt, you want to get your pry bar and put it over the tensioning roller and underneath the camshaft pulley, and then press this down all the way and then tighten this bolt. This way, this is resting all the way down, giving you more room when you go to put your timing belt on. There we go. Now I'm not going to be replacing the water pump on this job, but if you do, here it is. This is your water pump. I believe there's about 7 bolts and 1 screw up top that's holding it in, and most of them you can get to from up top, and there's one that's for the tensioning bracket for your alternator as well. That bolt goes into your water pump, so you'll need to take that off. Actually, it's probably better to remove your alternator altogether if you're going to be replacing your water pump. It just gives you more room, plus your thermostat, which is right down there, you get easier access to it if you remove the alternator too. But make sure you remove the positive cable on your battery as well if you're going to be taking off the alternator. Also, this is the perfect time to replace your camshaft seal. In order to do that, you need to remove this 14 millimeter bolt, remove your sprocket, get that seal out, put in a new one, and then torque this down to 40 foot-pounds, I believe. And same goes for your crankshaft seal. And in order to get to that seal, all you have to do is to pull out on this crankshaft gear, and there's your seal. But also your oil pump housing, there's an O-ring or a gasket underneath it that could leak too, so you might want to replace that as well if you're experiencing a lot of oil leaks. I'm not going to deal with this stuff because I believe most of this oil leak is from the valve cover gasket up top. Plus this car, it's got 205,000 miles and it's got about 205,000 problems too, so it's on its last legs. But anyway, if you're doing it on a car that you are expecting to keep for a long time, these are the seals you need to replace. Alright, next it's time to put our timing belt back on, but before we do that, we need to put our crankshaft and our camshaft at the top, that center mark. And I needed to pull this out because you guys need to see the tiniest notches of all time on a crankshaft gear, which is this guy right here. This is the one you need to align with the mark on your engine.